Even though the way you access and view QuickBooks data is important, and that's what we do through preferences, it's probably even more important that others either can't see it at all or are limited in what they can do within the company file. That's why, unless you're a sole proprietor and the only one with access to your computer, you should probably establish some security. Actually, even if you are the only one, you should still secure it in case your computer is ever stolen or accessed without your knowledge. When it comes to QuickBooks security, there are really two options. One is Windows-based security, and the other is through QuickBooks itself. We're obviously not going to go into all of the Windows things, but Windows-based is usually implemented by your IT department or somebody who knows how to work with those permissions. It's going to allow existing groups or users to have certain access or permissions to either the data file or the folder as a whole. We're going to focus more on QuickBooks, of course. QuickBooks allows password protection for access, that's the admin account, and also user-level options. The first thing you need to know is that QuickBooks can be in either single or multi-user mode. In single-user mode, only one logged-in user is allowed at a time. You can modify security settings when you're in this mode, and there are also certain maintenance procedures that can only be done when you're in single-user mode. Single-user mode is not necessary for everything, though, because multi-user mode allows more than one person to be logged into the company file at any one time. What QuickBooks does is it uses something called record-level locking, meaning two people could be creating invoices at the same time, but they couldn't be creating invoices or working with the same company at the same time. So, multiple people working in the file, but not allowed to do exactly the same thing. Obviously, that would cause issues with who has priority to overwrite another person's work. So multi-user mode allows multiple simultaneous logons. Some of your software will come with up to 5 user licenses. You have to check and make sure, though, that you're legal. You can't just go out and install QuickBooks on as many computers as you want and be following your licensing agreement. And of course, if you need to be in single user mode, QuickBooks will tell you that you need to go ahead and shut down and open it in that mode instead. When we talk about defining multiple users, we have to also talk about user roles. The user role that is always required is at least one administrator. The administrator is the one who can create user IDs and passwords and can determine what tasks each other user should have access to. Users log on and have access only to specified things that are allowed by the administrator. So a user account could be very restricted, or it could have access to some parts of the file without having access to the others. One of the newer options that QuickBooks has put in is something called an external accountant. They are the one who would have access to the account, of course, as an accountant, but not information like the client list that should not be shared with others outside of the company. It's kind of a nice balancing act that they have between administrator, users, and even accountants, everybody of which should have different permissions for different portions of the file. Remember that only the administrator can do certain things, like condensing data, importing and exporting, and using the interview feature, as well as creating new companies and backing up data. When you work with each user, you have to define a security profile for that user. Basically, they fall into 3 different categories. You can have complete access, that's what the administrator has, they can do anything that they want, or you can allow no access at all, or you can give a subset of access rights for each category. The categories we're talking about are the profile categories. They include sales and accounts receivable, purchases and AP, checking and credit cards, time tracking, certain accounting activities, sensitive financial reports, and changing or deletion of transactions. Now, I think most of these are self-explanatory. For example, if I have a salesperson, they obviously need to be able to do sales and accounts receivable, so they can create invoices and also work with the accounts receivable information. But they probably shouldn't have any access to sensitive financial reports. For example, the company's overall balance sheet would be a good example of that. What you'll do when you get into QuickBooks is set up the users and then define a profile for each user, going through each of these categories, setting up how much access and what type of access they should have to each area.